Today's video looks at one of the greatest multi-weight fighters ever to live and the first three-division world champion, Ruby Robert, better known as Bob Fitzsimmons. Robert James Fitzsimmons was born on May 25, 1863, in Helston, Cornwall, England, to parents James and Jane Fitzsimmons. A blacksmith by trade, Fitzsimmons would become one of the greatest boxers the sport has seen. Fitzsimmons stood 5 feet 11 inches and a half with a 71.5-inch reach. He had an aggregate weight of around 161 pounds based on recorded weight over the course of his career. We used BoxRec for Fitzsimmons' official record, though, like many from his era, there are varying accounts of his overall fight totals. Fitzsimmons had 61 wins, 8 losses, and 4 draws. 57 of his wins were by knockout. He also had 6 no-decision bouts. His win percentage was 77 and his knockout percentage was 72. Fitzsimmons' career spanned from 1885 to 1914. The fighting blacksmith came to age in Tiramu, New Zealand, in the 1870s, where he worked at a blacksmith forge with his father. This hardened Fitzsimmons, and he devised a solid upper body which ultimately translated into knockout power during his boxing career. It would be 1880 when legendary pugilist Jem Mace visited New Zealand and organized a boxing tournament which Fitzsimmons won that kicked off his career. After building up his CV, by 1890, Fitzsimmons had arrived in the United States of America to stake his claim to boxing greatness. Bob Fitzsimmons' punching prowess was simple. Whatever he hit, dropped. His fighting style was patient and unassuming, but he was a tactician. He made sure that any time he threw a punch, it counted. He was an excellent counter-puncher. Fitzsimmons brought a scientific aspect to the boxing game, introducing the world to the solar plexus punch, and was one of the first great boxer punchers. Fitzsimmons got his first significant break on January 14, 1891, by knocking out nonpareil Jack Dempsey at the Olympic Sporting Club in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the 13th round to win the world middleweight title, handing Dempsey only the second loss of his career. Fitzsimmons' most famous fight is undoubtedly his March 17, 1897 bout with then world heavyweight champion gentleman James J. Corbett. An outdoor stadium was constructed in Carson City, Nevada, in what would become the first video-recorded World Heavyweight Championship bout. The film of the fight was released in theaters across the country in the aftermath of the fight, generating money for what could be, in theory, considered the first-ever pay-per-view heavyweight championship fight. The first half of the fight was very much a Corbett fight. Fitzsimmons stalked Corbett, trying to cut off the ring, but was largely unsuccessful. Corbett himself was a great, scientific boxer and used his footwork to keep away from anything powerful that Fitzsimmons threw. Corbett was also successful at controlling the distance with his jab. Corbett was also able to drop Fitzsimmons in the 6th round of the fight and looked as though he might cruise to a victory. As the fight went on and Fitzsimmons started to regain his senses, Corbett started to tire. He found himself getting caught on the inside as the distance between the two fighters started to close drastically. In the 14th round, Fitzsimmons landed a vicious left hook to Corbett's body in what was dubbed the solar plexus punch, dropping Corbett. This took the wind out of Corbett's body, who tried and struggled mightily to get up, though he was unable to do so before the referee counted to 10, handing Fitzsimmons the victory in one of the most dramatic knockouts the sport has seen. It was this fight that forever cemented Fitzsimmons' heavyweight legacy. He would lose the title to James J. Jeffries in 1899 and again lose to Jeffries in a second bid for the heavyweight title in 1902. He was heavily outweighed and winning both fights prior to being stopped by the larger and much stronger Jeffries. Fitzsimmons also picked up the World Light Heavyweight title on November 25, 1903, by winning a 20-round decision over George Gardner in California. Fitzsimmons faced 8 Hall of Famers in his most notable fights, which consisted of matches against Peter Marr, Nonpareil Jack Dempsey, Jack Johnson, Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, James J. Corbett, Tom Sharkey, James J. Jeffries, and Joe Koinski. Bob Fitzsimmons died of pneumonia in Chicago, Illinois, on October 22, 1917, and what he left behind is a legacy that can only be rivaled by a select number of the greatest fighters ever to live. One of the historic smaller fighters, Fitzsimmons accomplished feats that have seldom been matched. He was a champion who took on all comers, regardless of race or creed, and truly defined an era of pugilistic expansion.